They say decluttering is simple, just get rid of what you don't use. But after 60, it's not that easy. Every drawer holds a memory. Every object has a story. In this video, we reveal 7 brutal truths about decluttering in later life and why it's one of the most emotional, complicated things seniors quietly struggle with. I stood in front of the closet for an hour. Not because I couldn't decide what to wear, but because I couldn't decide what to let go of. It wasn't just about clothes. It was about memories. A scarf I hadn't worn in years but still remembered the trip I bought it on. A jacket that belonged to someone I loved and lost. A pair of shoes from a time when walking felt easier, lighter. Each item whispered a version of who I used to be, and choosing what to keep felt like choosing which parts of myself I was willing to forget. Decluttering after 60 is different. It's not about organizing, it's about identity. It's about legacy. It's about what you've built, what you've carried, and what you're afraid to lose. It's one thing to declutter in your 30s or 40s when you're moving forward, building something new. But later in life, letting go doesn't always make space for something new. Sometimes it just leaves a hole, and that's the part no one warns you about. This video is not about trendy storage hacks or minimalist goals. It's about the real weight of saying goodbye to pieces of your life, the emotional knots that form when a drawer holds more than objects, when it holds people, places, love, loss, and time. In this video, we'll walk through 7 brutal truths about decluttering in your later years. Truths that are rarely spoken, but deeply felt. And we'll talk about how to face each one with grace, with purpose, and most importantly, with self-compassion. Because you don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to do it kindly. We're told to declutter by asking, do I use this? Or does it bring me joy? But what if the answer is, it brings me memories? That's where things get complicated. Because after 60, the items around us aren't just functional. They're fragments of a lifetime. A chipped teacup you never used but that your daughter served you tea in when she was little. A worn cardigan from your spouse's side of the closet, still holding the faintest trace of their cologne. A drawer of old letters, yellowed, unread in years, but heavy with the voices of people who meant everything. Letting go of those things can feel like letting go of the people, the places, and the versions of ourselves they represent. We're not just sorting belongings. We're sifting through love, loss, identity, that framed photo from a vacation long past, that sewing kit from when your hands still moved without pain, those books you used to read aloud before bedtime routines turned into memories. Decluttering at this stage of life isn't just emotional, it's intimate, it's deeply personal, and it's rarely understood unless you've lived through it. That's why it's so hard to decide what stays and what goes. It's not that you're holding on to junk, you're holding on to meaning. And sometimes letting go feels like erasing part of your history. Like clearing a shelf is somehow dishonoring a chapter of your life. But here's the truth. You don't have to throw everything away to move forward. You're allowed to keep the things that carry your story. The key is in choosing which parts of your story you want to carry into the future and which ones can be remembered without being physically present. Photograph the objects, write down the memories, keep one thing instead of 10. But don't let anyone make you feel like it should be easy. It's not, and that's okay. Because this isn't just about decluttering a room. It's about honoring your life and finding a way to hold on without being held back. And that takes strength, the quiet kind most people never see. We hear a lot about quick decluttering methods. Weekend makeovers, 30-day challenges, the idea that you can overhaul a lifetime in one clean sweep. But after 60, it's not that simple. By this point in life, what surrounds you isn't just stuff. It's decades of living. It's your first apartment's kitchen tools still tucked in a drawer. It's the baby clothes you swore you'd pass down. It's gifts from anniversaries, souvenirs from places you may never see again, and the everyday objects that quietly gathered meaning simply by being part of your routine. This isn't just clutter. It's your life in layers. And expecting yourself to sort, decide, and discard it all in a weekend is not just unrealistic, it's deeply unfair. Because with every item comes a choice, a memory, a weight. And those choices are exhausting, not just physically, but emotionally. You may start strong, maybe you tackle a closet, a drawer, a shelf, but after a few hours, the weight sets in. Not just the physical fatigue, but the emotional fatigue. You find yourself staring at things longer, hesitating more, feeling the pressure to be productive, while quietly battling the guilt of letting go. Or worse, the fear of losing part of yourself in the process. And most of the time, you're doing it alone. Family may offer to help, but they often don't understand the emotional toll. What looks like junk to them might be the last piece of a chapter you're not ready to close. This isn't a task you check off. It's a process, one that deserves time, patience, and care. You don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to finish in a weekend or a month or even a year. What you're carrying is a lifetime, and that means it will take time to sort through, to honor, and to decide what stays and what can be released with love. So give yourself grace. If today you only manage one box, that's enough. If all you do is sit and remember without throwing a single thing away, that counts too. Because this isn't about cleaning up. It's about making peace with your past and creating space for whatever comes next. And that can't be rushed. You save things thinking they'll matter to someone else someday. The fine china from your wedding, the antique clock from your parents' home, the chest of drawers that held every baby blanket, every school photo, every hand-me-down sweater. These weren't just items to you. They were promises. Pieces of your life you imagined passing on, believing that when the time came, your children or grandchildren would understand. They would see the value. They would want them. But sometimes they don't. And when they don't, it hurts more than you expected. They might say they don't have the space, that they don't need more stuff, that everything's digital now or minimalist, or that it just doesn't fit their style. You try to understand, it's a different world, a different generation. But deep down, it can feel like rejection. Not just of the item, but of the memories it holds, of the love you wrapped into every detail. You start to wonder if the story you've been saving all these years was only meaningful to you. And that's where the quiet grief begins. Because it isn't just decluttering anymore. It's letting go of an expectation you didn't even know you were holding. It's learning how to say goodbye not only to the object, but to the future you once imagined for it. But here's what you need to know. Their disinterest isn't a reflection of your worth or of the life you built. It's okay if they don't want the silver, or the books, or the collections you treasured. What matters most is not that they keep the things, but that they remember the moments behind them. Sometimes the best gift you can give isn't the object, it's the story. Take the time to write it down. Share why it mattered to you. Let them hear the history, the feeling, the reason it was important. Then, if they choose to let the item go, you'll know the story still lives on. Because the love was never in the thing itself. It was always in you. There's a particular kind of heartbreak hidden in the back of closets and the bottom of drawers. Items you once held on to not because of what they were, but because of what they represented. Maybe it's a pair of jeans from when your body felt lighter, freer, a tennis racket you haven't picked up in years, fabric for a quilt you planned to sew once you had the time, travel guides bookmarked with dreams of Italy or Alaska, places that were always going to happen someday. We hold on to these things not just out of habit, but because they're connected to a version of ourselves we once believed we'd become. And when we finally confront them, decades later, it's not just a decision about keeping or tossing, it's a quiet moment of reckoning. Because some of those dreams never happened. And the things that remain are more than objects. They're reminders. Reminders of what life gave us and what it didn't. Of paths we wanted to walk but couldn't. Of passions we had to pause. Responsibilities that came first. Health that changed the plan. It's not just nostalgia, it's grief. a subtle, often unspoken grief that surfaces when you realize the ballet shoes or the paintbrushes or the business books are no longer about what's possible, but what's past. Letting go of these items is one of the hardest parts of decluttering after 60, because it means acknowledging not just what was, but what never came to be. But here's the truth. Releasing them doesn't erase your hope. It honors it. It honors who you were when you bought those things, who you were when you believed in that future. And sometimes letting go of the item allows you to reclaim the emotion behind it. Maybe you'll never use that passport again, but you did carry the dream of seeing the world. That spirit still lives in you. You don't have to keep every object to keep the feeling. What matters most isn't whether you held on to the item. It's that you were brave enough to dream in the first place. And even braver now, to make peace with the dreams that quietly changed. You think you're just going to clean out a cabinet or sort through a closet, but then a strange heaviness settles in your chest. It's not just about the mess. It's not even about the decisions. It's the unexpected emotions that rise up when you least expect them. A sweater you forgot you had, still with the tags, guilt. A drawer full of unopened stationery. A hobby you promised yourself you'd get back to. Shame. Box of toys no child will play with again. Loss. Decluttering after 60 isn't just about clearing space. It's about facing the weight of what wasn't used, what changed, what slipped away quietly while life was being lived. And with that comes a flood of emotion, much of it unspoken, even to ourselves. You may feel guilty for what you've held on to, for what you should have donated years ago, or for the money spent on things that never saw their purpose fulfilled. You might feel shame for the disorganization, even if it was never your intention. You might feel sadness for the usefulness something once had, now gone, simply because your life has moved on. These emotions are not signs of weakness. They are signs that you care. And that's what makes decluttering so much more than a chore. You're not just deciding what stays and what goes. You're reckoning with years of meaning. You're revisiting every version of yourself, the one who once needed this, loved this, or believed in what this item stood for. You're not just cleaning, you're processing. And that takes energy more than most people see. So when you find yourself overwhelmed by a wave of emotion mid-tale, pause. Breathe. Remind yourself that it's okay to feel all of it. These reactions are part of the letting go. They are part of the honoring. You are allowed to grieve the loss of usefulness. You are allowed to feel tender toward a pile of things you no longer need. That tenderness is proof of a life well lived. Decluttering after 60 is an emotional act, not because you're clinging, but because you've carried so much. And now, with courage and care, you're choosing what to carry next. That's not just strength. That's healing. You stand in the middle of the room, surrounded by years of your life, and suddenly, you don't know where to begin. A hallway full of photos, a cabinet of old dishes, closets that haven't been touched in decades. Everything holds meaning. Everything feels important. And just like that, you freeze. And this is what people don't understand about decluttering after 60. It's not laziness. It's not procrastination. It's paralysis. Because when everything tells a story, how do you decide which one goes first? You want to be practical, but your heart keeps pulling you back. And before you know it, an afternoon project turns into days of staring at the same boxes, feeling overwhelmed, stuck, and maybe even ashamed for not making more progress. But here's the truth. You are not alone in feeling this way. Many seniors feel the same quiet panic when they try to sort through their things. They feel guilty for not knowing where to begin, embarrassed that the task feels bigger than they expected. Some are afraid to ask their children or caregivers for help, not wanting to feel like a burden. But you don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to have a plan that tackles every room. You just need to begin, gently, slowly. Start small. One drawer, one box of photos, one shelf of books. Pick something that feels manageable, not emotionally charged. Maybe it's the junk drawer in the kitchen. Maybe it's a shelf in the hall closet. Somewhere quiet, somewhere where decisions are simpler. That's where the momentum lives. And from there, progress will come. Not perfection, just progress. Some days that might mean clearing a small corner. Other days it might mean sitting with an old photo and letting yourself remember. Both count, both are valid. Because decluttering isn't a race. It's a personal journey of reconnection, decision, and grace. So give yourself permission to go slowly, to ask for help, to not know the answer to every item right away. It's okay not to know where to start. What matters is that you're willing to begin. And that first step, however small, is more powerful than you think. Letting go is never easy, especially when what you're releasing holds meaning, memories, and the marks of a life well lived. But sometimes, in the middle of the grief and the struggle, something unexpected happens. You begin to feel lighter. Not because your memories are gone, but because your space finally feels like it's holding only what matters now. And that is a different kind of peace. After 60, our relationship with space changes. We're not collecting anymore, we're curating. We're asking ourselves not, what did this mean to me then, but does it still serve me now? And when you begin to let go with intention, not pressure, a quiet transformation can take place. You stop clinging to things out of guilt or fear and start choosing what supports the life you still want to live. You make room, not just physically, but emotionally, for clarity, for breath, for presence. And the beauty is, letting go doesn't mean erasing your story. In fact, it can be the most powerful way to pass it on. When you choose to give something away with love, your favorite teacup to a granddaughter, your cherished books to a friend who will read them with care, you're not discarding, you're sharing. You're continuing the story in someone else's hands. That's not loss, that's legacy. And sometimes, even when no one else wants the item, you can still let go with grace. Because what mattered most was never the thing. It was the life you lived while it was with you. The laughter at the dinner table where those dishes were used. The adventures you dreamed of when you packed that suitcase. The care you gave when that quilt kept a loved one warm. What matters most isn't what you keep. It's what you've lived. And that can never be thrown away. So as you sort through each drawer, each closet, each memory, do it with love, do it gently, and let your choices reflect not just what you're parting with, but what you're holding close. Because letting go, when done with intention, doesn't shrink your life. It clears a path for what still matters and what's yet to come. You're not just decluttering a home, you're honoring a lifetime. Every box you open, every drawer you touch carries more than objects. It carries laughter, loss, dreams, decisions, and decades of living. And the fact that it takes time, that it brings emotion, isn't a weakness. It's proof of a life filled with meaning. You don't have to do it all at once, and you don't have to do it alone. Whether you start with a single keepsake or a single shelf, know that every small step is enough. This isn't about speed or perfection, it's about intention. About showing care for the story you've lived and creating space for the next chapter. And maybe along the way, you'll shed tears over things you thought you were ready to let go of. That's okay. That's normal. Because this process isn't just physical, it's emotional. You're not just organizing things. You're making peace with seasons of your life. So be gentle with yourself. Pause when you need to. Invite someone in when it feels too heavy. Remember that asking for help is not giving up control, it's inviting compassion. And if your family doesn't understand every choice you make or every item you choose to keep, that's okay too. Because this is your story, your space, your legacy. After 60, decluttering isn't about clearing space. It's about finding peace with your past and making room, real room, for what matters next. Whether that's quiet, freedom, connection, or simply breathing easier in the home you love. You've carried so much. You've earned the right to set some of it down. So move slowly, move gently, but know this. Every item you let go of with love creates space for something else to bloom. And that too is part of growing older with grace. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this video made you feel seen or reminded you that you're not alone in this process, I hope you'll share it with someone else who might need that same reassurance. And if you haven't already, I'd love for you to subscribe to Elderly Truths. This is a space for honest conversations, tender reflections, and support for every stage of aging, with heart. Until next time, be kind to yourself. You're not just decluttering. You're honoring everything you've lived and making space for what still matters.